We've got a busy agenda ahead of us tonight, and I'm glad to see that so many folks are tuning in, and some people are still probably logging on as we work through the technical difficulties. Um, Tonight, we'll hear from, we're going to start by talking about the York Road Corridor, which runs right through the center of our district, and the opportunities that something called the Business Improvement District can bring to the corridor. And we'll also hear from our city agencies, representatives from the Baltimore Police Department, from the Department of Housing and Community Development, and from the Department of Transportation. I'm also going to give some updates on what we've been up to in City Hall and what's happening in the community. But first, I want to take a moment to introduce my office's new Chief of Staff. Really excited, Deontay Edwards. Welcome to the team. We're extremely lucky to have him joining our office, and I want to let him say a few words of introduction before we jump into it all. So, Deontay.
Good evening, everyone. Like Mark said, I'm Deontay Edwards. I'm the new Chief of Staff on Team D4. Really excited to be here. I've had a pretty decent career as a Navy analyst and have moved into kind of the nonprofit realm since I moved to Baltimore. I've been very active in Pigtown, and I'm hoping to bring a lot of that experience here to the district. I've already had a chance to speak with several people who reached out today to welcome me to the district, and thank you all for welcoming me. And yeah, I am very excited to get to work with everyone and really take district 4 to the next level.
Awesome. Thanks, Deontay. Next, we'll jump into the bid, and I'll introduce my fellow MC here to talk about York Road, Marie McSweeney Anderson, who many of you may already know. She is the Assistant Director for Loyola University's York Road Initiative and the corresponding secretary for the York Road Partnership.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So let's jump into it. So first, what is a bid? You guys have probably heard me talking about that quite a bit. A business improvement district, or BID, is defined as an area in which businesses pay a regular levy or fee in order to fund projects within the district's boundaries. The BID is often funded primarily through the fee, but it can also draw on other public and private funding streams. These districts usually fund services perceived by some businesses as being inadequately performed, such as cleaning streets, providing security, construction of pedestrian and streetscape enhancements, restorations and other projects, and of course, marketing of the area. Next, oh, excuse me, I've got kids in the background. You may ask, why a bid? Property owners are, for a bid, taxed as opposed to business owners, which ensures full participation towards the betterment of the area. There are repercussions for property owners with vacant properties who end up not paying a tax, which a bid can account for. Previously, fees under the former structure, which was called the Retail Business District License, or the RBDL, as some of you may have heard in the past, only garnered about $40,000 annually. And the bid would expand that budget to roughly $3,000, allowing for greater staff capacity and functionality. The legislation would be active for 4 years, and it would need to be renewed in order to continue ensuring buy-in and investment on the part of the property owners. It's designed to be nimble, of course, and so fees can be increased or decreased by a board vote. And residential areas can opt in the future if they so desire. Marie, I'll hand off to you.
Yeah. So what would a bid for York Road mean? So our hope, and the hope of the businesses and property owners who are part of the bid board, who you're going to meet a little bit later, is to create a cleaner and greener commercial corridor. I know that we've struggled with both crime and grime for a while. Drive foot traffic and sales to our York Road businesses, attract new businesses to the corridor, and provide support to existing commercial tenants and owners in order to raise property values along the whole corridor. And then also provide entry-level jobs to Baltimore residents through the cleaning and greening program. We can go to the next slide. So I couldn't resist this photo. This photo is from 2012. You might notice a few familiar faces, some folks from the GBA, the old 4th District office. Right here up in the front, we have Terry Sawyer, who's the new president at Loyola. David, you can go to the next slide. But this process has really started over 10 years ago. And so building upon the York Road Strategic Neighborhood Action Plan, or SNAP, in 2006, and then which was updated in 2012. In 2012, the Urban Land Institute, or ULI, provided a technical assistance panel with professional representatives in transportation and architecture, commercial redevelopment, et cetera, for the York Road corridor. And for folks who aren't familiar, ULI is the oldest and largest network of cross-disciplinary real estate and land use experts. And it's not just here in the United States, but it's also worldwide. And so we worked with the Baltimore chapter. And then in 2014, really building off of that, the York Corridor Collective was established as recommended by ULI. And so this was an organization that was really tasked with long-term visioning for the York Road corridor, and institutions such as Notre Dame, Morgan, Loyola, leaders from the York Road Partnership, the 4th District Council offices, members of the Business Association, and city departments like Planning and DOT were also a part of it. And many of you might have participated in the many meetings that we had to really vision together. So hundreds of stakeholders, business owners, residents from up and down the corridor participated in visioning throughout the year, ultimately culminating in the York Road Commercial Corridor Vision and Action Plan. And then in 2015, this vision and action plan was passed through the planning department. And the first recommendation of this plan was to establish a business improvement district. So that's a little bit easier said than done. So in 2016, we hired consultants to really do the nitty-gritty work. They reviewed bids locally here in Baltimore and also throughout the country. And they also considered whether the tax should be based on property value or square footage. And they also considered whether the property owners or business owners or residents should be involved. And so they recommended a property owner model based on square footage versus property value in order to ensure equity up and down the corridor. So then in 2018, we were ready to launch. Legislation was submitted by then Councilman Bill Henry, and then communication to business owners, property owners commenced. And so as we'll talk about, there were a number of factors happening in addition to the bid campaign. And then in 2019, ultimately when votes were counted, the bid campaign was unsuccessful with only 32% of respondents approving the measure. And in order for the bid to be successful, 58% of property owners who respond, so 58% of the total respondents must approve the measure. So we haven't been resting. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected everyone here, particularly business owners. The Business Association dissolved, however, small projects continued. Folks are probably familiar with the new Together Govins mural that was installed on the southern end of the corridor. 5 business locations received improvements to their outdoor seating through the Design for Distance program, and a new Unity Tracks crosswalk was installed near the Govins Farmers Market. Currently, facade improvement planning is underway for the 5400 through 5700 blocks. New businesses continue to locate and choose York Road as a home, and the momentum is building for this campaign.
Thanks, Marie. The big question is, why now? Well, a business improvement district along the York Road corridor has been 10 years in the works, so this is not a new idea. And today, there is no ongoing holistic support for current and prospective businesses and property owners along the corridor, nor is there a 501c3 or a community development organization organized along the York Road corridor that can project manage, fundraise, and consistently advocate for the corridor as its main mission. The York Road commercial corridor is missing out on funding opportunities available through the American Rescue Plan right now because there's no established commercial corridor organization.
Yeah. And so we talked a little bit about what's different now too. And so as Mark said, there is no commercial corridor organization. There is no organization that supports businesses. And also, most importantly for this campaign, there's no organization that is in opposition. So previously, the Govinstown Business Association really wanted residents to be a part of the initial vote. And so what the consultants recommended was to start with property owners, and eventually residents could be added. But as Mark said, every 4 years, there's an opportunity to vote. So we want to start small, start strong, and then grow from there. And there's been, like we said, an increase in new businesses established along the corridor, even throughout the pandemic. The 4th District office has created really strong partnerships with city organizations and departments like DPW, DGS, that are committed to focusing on the York Road corridor. There's long-term plans for improvement in transportation, and we're hopeful for ARPA funding from the federal government to come down to support some middle neighborhood strategies. So we talk about this often, York Road. We know Govins is a gem, and right now is a real opportunity to capitalize on that.
Excellent. We can move on to the next slide. All right, and now I want to bring on one of my favorite people, and one of Baltimore's bid experts, Lori Schwartz. Lori Schwartz has dedicated her career to helping make Baltimore an even better place to live and to work. In the early 1980s, Lori helped the city and the area businesses start the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore, and she served as its first president for over 15 years. Following a stint at City Hall under then Mayor O'Malley, Lori worked as an independent consultant for 9 years. And during that time, she helped the waterfront property owners and waterfront area attractions and the city of Baltimore start the Waterfront Partnership of Baltimore. In 2010, Lori agreed to join the organization as the full-time executive director. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Lori, to tell us a little bit about your experience and how much you've learned in that time. So, Lori,
thank you so much, Councilman, and you're one of my favorite people too, and so excited to have you on our board of directors. Excuse me. I heard much of the overview. I had a hard time getting in, but I did hear much of the overview, so I'm not sure I have to talk about the specifics of what a business improvement district is or a community benefits district. I think many of you know, and I'm happy to answer any questions at all. But what I have found, and I have created several of these districts in the city and spoken with other cities around the country. I used to be involved in an organization of these kinds of organizations and made up of these organizations. And some of the common denominators were really a sense of empowerment for property owners that allows them to come together and have some weight, if you will, with city government. Unfortunately, these districts often come about as a result of frustration with city government a belief that the city should be providing more services. However, in each instance I've been involved in, the business owners or property owners have acknowledged that might be the case. The city should be providing more services, but they're not, and they're not able to for whatever reason. It's different in every city. For ours, I think we can pretty much see what the resources of the city are. And so at the end of the day, the property owners decide these services are needed. And if the city's not going to provide it, we're going to do it. And so it's a way to organize property owners around common concerns and principles. Often property owners come together to provide additional cleaning services, which benefit the neighborhood or the corridor in this case in a number of ways. Number one, it makes it cleaner, obviously, but also visitors or potential patrons can often see someone cleaning, sweeping up in a uniform that would say the York Road Corridor or whatever you want the name of the organization to be. And that's really important too. People often notice someone doing something like cleaning an area up more than they notice, gee, this area is clean. So it's just as important to show the employees that are cleaning up on your behalf as it is to have the area cleaner. But additionally, I mentioned the heft or the weight of the entity is so important to deal with city government. It's not just another association, it's an organization of property owners who are putting their money to work for them in the neighborhood. And I think the city, whether it's the mayor's office or DPW, responds even more so to people who are helping themselves. And business improvement districts, community benefits districts are organizations that are helping themselves. One of the other benefits that I believe exists for community or business improvement districts in Baltimore City is that the organization is in existence for 4 years and then includes a sunset and renewal provision. So that's a really good way for skeptics, I have found, to sign on and say, well, I'm not sure this will work, but I'll agree to do it for 4 years. And if at the end of that 4 years, I don't think it's working, I can go to a city council hearing that's set up just for this purpose to say, it's not working, I think it should go out of business. Or in some cases, property owners come together and say, we just want to change the way we're organized or the boundaries. But that mechanism is built in to the law where you have an opportunity to voice your concerns or the praise for the organization and ask that it be renewed for another 4 years. And then you'll have another chance to voice concerns. And that sunset provision also keeps staff on their toes, frankly. It's not an organization that's going to last forever. It's an organization that has a life of 4 years, and staff sure better show the value of the entity if they expect to keep performing the work on your behalf. So to me, those are some of the key benefits. The last one would come at the end of the process after the ordinance is passed. There's a organized ballot or vote. It's mail in, and the entity that's helping to organize the district is required to mail out. They're just paper ballots that are approved by the Board of Estimates before it goes out. And that allows every property owner, it's one property owner, it's one property, one vote. So if someone owns 5 properties, you get 5 votes. Doesn't matter if your property is large or small, it's based on 1 vote per property. So each property owner gets to vote whether they support it or don't support it. And those votes are sent back directly to the City Board of Estimates, self-addressed stamped envelope, nobody else can tamper with it. And they open those envelopes at a public session of the Board of Estimates. And the votes are counted right there. I've been in the room and, tally as they go through each envelope to say whether it's in support or opposed. And the district will go ahead and be approved only if at least 50% of the returned ballots vote in favor. So there's another step besides the city council ordinance process and the public hearing. You'd have a planning commission and at city council. At the end of the process, there's a vote as well, and it won't go ahead unless sufficient votes are received in favor. So those are some quick points. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about any additional kinds of information people would like.
Thanks, Lori. We're gonna actually move along pretty quickly, and I know you were gracious enough to give us a little bit of time. I know you have something to hop to right after, so we'll try to move along quickly and get to some questions if folks have them, so that you can be on your way. So we can go on to the next slide. So just a bit about the budget. We're looking at a budget of from an early estimate just shy of $300,000. We expect that will not change. And you know, we have a number of things that we'd like to do with it. But primarily it would go toward funding at least one full-time person to actually run the bid, and then go towards cleaning and greening of the corridor and promotion of the corridor, at least initially. And I think as we're able to apply for additional funds, whether it be ARPA funds, grant funds, or otherwise, put those efforts towards greater and hopefully more helpful initiatives to the businesses along the corridor. You can go into the next slide.
So we're getting this started pretty quickly. This is kind of our kickoff event to share information. April is when the councilman's office will drop legislation, and we're hoping to have the vote in August. But between then, we'll be hosting a series of town halls for property and business owners, because we know that the concerns on the southern end are very different than the northern end. And I also wanted to share that Loyola recently received a federal earmark, which will allow us to set up the policies and procedures for the bid in advance of actually getting, hopefully, the organization started.
Awesome. So thus far, we pulled together much of the prospective bid board. You're looking at a handful of folks now: Joe Chang from PG Enterprises, Ray Davis from Flight Restaurant, Jonathan Fishman, who was actually on the call a little earlier but had to hop to another meeting as well, from Be More Kitchen. Chris Forrest is many folks are familiar of from the Yorker Partnership. Rob Kelly from Loyola University, Trudy McNair from Spark Salon and Spa, and Janet Miller from Vaughn Green Funeral Homes. You know, we've been working with these folks for some time, and they've dedicated countless hours thus far to help us figure out how to do this well and to get complete buy-in. So I definitely want to thank those folks. Unfortunately, we were going to have an opportunity for them to speak, but Mr. Fishman had to hop off. So we can go on to the next slide. There we go. So if you're interested in engaging, we're really looking forward to leveraging our community impact, our community volunteers to do door knocking, visiting businesses to build relationships and drum up support for the bid. We'll be doing phone banking and running in many ways a traditional campaign. Ultimately, we need votes, and we need votes from the property owners who will ultimately make this decision. We'll do events and tabling, as we alluded to earlier. As you can see from the link here, we're soliciting volunteers. So if you are interested in being engaged in this process, please do sign up below. We'll make sure to share that information at the conclusion of this meeting. And I'm sure that'll go out regularly within our newsletter. And with that, since I know Lori has dedicated already a ton of time to us in this event, I want to set a little time aside right now for folks who may have questions. And to that end, I'll turn it over to Maura to see if we've got any questions thus far about the bid.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I know we have one question that got put in the chat, but I also know that we have two of our preliminary board members on the call right now, Chris Forrest and also Ray Davis, if they wanted to say a few words before we get to our first question.
Ray, did you want to go?
Hi, Chris.
Hey, how are you? I didn't have too much. I think everything has been said as far as why we're here. So Chris Forrest, current president of the Yoke Grove Partnership, and also President Winston Govins. And yes, been a part of this effort since the very beginning. The only thing that I will bring up, and I mean everything's been said, is that this is a commercial initiative, but they allocated space for residential focus and representation. So Eileen Gwynn, past president of Lake Walker, was there, and also Donna Blackwell, just to make sure we had residential insight in this as well. And I just feel this is one of the biggest opportunities of a collaborative effort, although commercial, for us to get together, and it'll be instrumental and a big changing point for our York Road catchment area. And Marie and everybody addressed the main things that we looked at as far as just safety, oversight, unity of the businesses themselves, promote consistency of cleanliness, and just proactive searching for businesses that best suit our needs and the quality of life we're looking for.
Thank you, Chris. Much appreciated. And I know that Ray is also on, although from Flight Restaurant, although I know that we were all having some technical difficulties, so I'm not sure that he's able to unmute. But Ray, if you can hear us, we appreciate you and appreciate your support. So I guess we'll hop to our 2 questions now that we've received. I will start with our first one. Can anybody please define property owner? Does this include the residential properties within the bid area, or just business property owners that will be paying into the bid?
Excellent question. As it is designed today, the business improvement district is only for businesses. So residential properties are not included in this. We do have an opportunity to consider that in the future, as I alluded to earlier. But as it is written, there are no residential properties in the improvement district. And property owners are people who own the property. It should be distinguished from business owners. We have plenty of businesses that are renting their space and running their business in someone else's building. The votes will be determined by the folks who own the buildings, who own the properties along the corridor. And so I think it's imperative for us not only to build relationships with businesses and to drum up the use and support and need for the business improvement district with businesses, but more so to get to their property owners who will ultimately make the decision, because a big component of a big piece of why the bid is important is because we can hold this, we can hold property owners accountable to paying the fees. So,
if I can just elaborate a second, the property owner lists or the owners of each property are available through the Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation. And that's the guiding document or database that informs all the property owner decisions and the nature of those properties. If SDAT, which is the acronym, defines a property as commercial or residential, that's what the bid district goes by. So it's not anyone's own interpretation of whether a property is commercial or residential. It's a separate state-enabled database.
Thank you for that, Lori. Our second question is seems like a suggestion, but a question about if we have made any attempt to get someone from the faith community to serve on the bid board, or if that's something that would be considered.
We do not specifically have someone. I'm guessing the intention of the question was from a church or a faith institution specifically. We don't have someone from any of the faith institutions on the board yet. But that's something certainly we can discuss, and we'll have a conversation with the board about that.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in briefly, Loyola is a faith institution, but it's also an academic institution.
That's right.
So just to share with folks, 501c3 nonprofits, such as nonprofit organizations or churches, are not required to pay into the bid. However, there have been a number of both nonprofits and academic institutions who have been a part of the planning process, including Loyola, who have offered to pledge a pilot tax in order to support the bid. So even though they're not required to, they will pay into the bid.
Thank you for helping out there, Marie.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, especially Marie and Chris and Lori, as well as Jonathan and Ray, who we didn't get to hear from, for being a part of this bid section. And we're really excited to share more about it in the coming weeks and months. But we'll move right along since we're a bit behind schedule because of our technical difficulties. And now I want to turn it over to some of our agency representatives who are here today to give a few updates from their offices, and then also to stick around at the end for a Q&A. So before I hand it over to Mr. Eric Lee from Department of Housing and Community Development, I'll just remind everybody, if you have any questions as our agency representatives are giving their updates, please pop those in the chat, and then starting at 7 p.m. we'll start answering questions and posing those to our agency representatives. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Eric Lee.
Thank you and good evening. Council member and your staff, thank you very much for inviting us to participate in your town hall. Am I able to share any content?
Oh, able to share your screen, you mean?
Yes.
Unfortunately, no. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Okay. So let me start with the most recent activity. Well, Department of Housing and Community Development is responsible for the disposal of city-owned properties, both dwellings and vacant lots. And we do so in a number of ways. One, by reaching out to developers, seeking to do rehab of properties for the purpose of selling or renting. Vacant lots, there could be new construction if it's sold to a developer, or we also have an adopt a lot program where community members or organizations can adopt a lot and engage in greening projects. And with the adopt a lot process, the purpose obviously is to put to use the vacant lots so that they will not be an attractant for illegal dumping. And it could be a benefit a number of ways, recreationally, as a relaxing space for members of the community, or to have a community garden where you can grow produce and or flowers for the beautification of the community. One of the other aspects of DHCD is to dispose of what we call surplus properties. And usually it's a school that has closed because of the consolidation of students in the new 21st century schools, like the one at Govins, and I think Walter P. Carter. But that left the school at 1101 Winston available as a surplus property. And we engaged in a RFP process that started almost a year ago, where we put out an expression of interest to find out which developers would be interested in rehabbing the property and putting it into productive use. We ended up with, just within the last couple of weeks, 7 qualified developers who are proposing to redevelop the property or put it into productive use, not necessarily a complete redevelopment project, but to use it for productive purposes. And in our process, we have gone through panel reviews of the proposals, a community meeting, which was well attended. And then the final step is actually tomorrow, where our review panel is scoring each one of the proposals. at which time we will then make a recommendation to the housing commissioner, Alice Kennedy, on what proposal we feel would be the highest and best use for the community that it is located in. This was not done in isolation from the community, because we did have an online survey in which the community was able to respond to the presentations that were given. And so we hope that in April, we'll be able to make the recommendation and ultimately the award to a developer for the property at 1101 Winston Avenue. We also have a partnership with the University of Baltimore and their Real Estate Fellows Program. And I believe it was last week, with the pandemic, I still get my days mixed up. But I think it was last week, we had a bus tour with about 8 real estate fellows going through Kenilworth Park and other areas, showing them available locations where they can either do new construction on a vacant lot or rehab of a vacant property. And so the Real Estate Fellows program happens annually. And in fact, the previous year, a developer, and the 8 or so real estate fellows compete for $1 million loan from Baltimore Community Lending, in which they're able to then use that based on their proposal and their presentation, use that to do some major construction. So we're focused on eliminating the blight. And just so, for the purpose of understanding the context in which we're dealing with blight, of the 13,000 vacant properties in Baltimore City, the city only owns about 1,300 of them. And so we've significantly reduced the amount of blighted properties that we have. The challenge we have is turning those privately owned vacant properties into turning them over into the hands of a developer. And so that process is done either through receivership, where we file with the courts the hope of getting them to award the properties to the city, and then it's auctioned off through an auction house, one house at a time. The other update that I'd like to give is that for the vacant lots in particular, where you have community gardens, we have the ability for gardeners to get water access and during the growing season. And we consider the growing season between April and November. In that growing season, you can apply for water access. It's a $120 flat fee for the months between April and November. We actually facilitate the process because it's DPW that will come and determine whether water access is available. And if it is, they'll be able to hook it up so that people can continue to cause their gardens to be fruitful and productive. And that only happens between April and November, but that time is now. One last thing. We have, the Department of Housing and Community Development has recently launched our new software program on the application process for acquiring and developing city-owned properties. The process is an online application process, which we had before, particularly since the pandemic, but the process was taking at the most 6 months. So anywhere between 4 and 6 months it would take from application to settlement of a property. And we have a new program called Slate, in which it is supposed to be 60 days from the time of application to settlement that a developer can get that property in their hands and then redevelop it and offer it as either for sale or for rent, which is a huge improvement. And so it also allows all of our divisions within Department of Housing and Community Development to see the status of the property from application to settlement and whose hands it is in at that time. It should greatly improve the efficiency of how we dispose of city-owned properties and hopefully expedite the elimination of blight in our communities. And so, council member, one last thing, we'll be reaching out to you because in the last RFP cycle, we had Guilford Elementary in that RFP cycle that had been pulled because of a number of reasons. we're going to re-engage that in the next RFP cycle. So I will be reaching out to your office to do another legislative briefing on that. And so that is my quick and fast update within the 5-minute span that you've given me, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Really appreciate you being here. And I see a few questions that are being popped into the chat. So when we get to the Q&A section at the end, I'll lob those over to you. But really appreciate your time. And so I know our next guests that are visiting us today to give some updates are from the Northeastern District of the Baltimore Police Department. Although, as everyone knows, we've been having some technical difficulties, so we're not sure if they're on. If anybody is on from Northeastern, would you mind using the raise hand function, because you might be in the attendee section of the meeting instead of the panelist section. So we'll just wait for a hand raise, I think. And maybe while we're waiting for that, I'll pop over to, I see Major Shorter is here, as well as Sergeant Vini from the Northern District of BPD. So if either of you would be able to give some updates, some brief updates, we'd appreciate it.
Good evening. Thank you for the invite. We've had a couple incidents, violent incidents throughout the district, but none particularly in your councilmatic district. We are working with York Road Partnership in reference to some business licensing on York Road. And I'm working through those to figure out what's the best for the community and the business. We do need viable business partners on York Road, but we don't need problematic business partners on York Road. I'm working with DHCD in reference to the signage issues that we may have on York Road. We want everyone to be safe while also providing the business the opportunity to prevent a healthy and type of business that people want to go in and shop at those businesses. So if you have 50% of your windows covered, that's a violation. I've been working with them to issue just notices initially to say, hey, you're in violation of these DHC mandates, and they've been working with us to eliminate those problems. 5220 York Road has a new security company that we're working with to provide additional security for the residents and also help us out with the problems that we have with 5220 York Road, as well as the cleaners, the bus stop, and of course, in front of your building. The summer is coming. We've had a lot of an increase in property crimes, such as larceny from autos, burglaries. Can you hear me?
No, she said she had not.
Hello?
We can hear you, Major.
Okay. So additionally, we just want people to realize that a lot of burglaries occur when people push in mobile or AC units. So we just ask you that you properly secure those AC units and put them on the second floor and have maybe a fan on the first floor that you can take in at night to just give your house the airflow, because burglars look for those air conditioning units on the first level. It's an easy target. And at night, because it's blowing more times than not, you don't hear those things because the noise that the AC makes. I've always said, don't make your car a gift for someone else. So please don't leave packages on your seats. People have been doing it a lot, leaving their vehicles unlocked with presents, and people are taking them. I'm working with the many communities. We're going to send out some flyers, crime prevention flyers. Sergeant Vinny will take care of that about the summer. I believe it's the end of April, the mayor's having his cleanup programs that I encourage everyone to get involved in. I don't have the link in front of me right now, but if your office can push it out later on, even now, or I'll have it by our next commanders meeting, which is the second Wednesday of April. All communities can sign up. We'll reach out and attend as many sessions as we can. But as a community, that's a good way to meet your neighbors. That's an issue that I see continually in Baltimore. You coming home, You go in the house, you shut your door and shut that and close the windows, but you don't know who your neighbor is. As nighttime grows, we have more sunlight. There'll be more people out. So it's a great time to meet your neighbors. Our crime expert, we can't share that information. So at our commanders meeting, we'll have that available for an update on the crime. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. I don't want to take up too much time. I think you said we have 5 minutes. So I'm probably at my ding limit. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Major Shorter. Really appreciate it. You did great.
Thank you.
And I did see that we have a representative from Northeast. And so I will pop it over to Captain Wallace.
So this is Sergeant Hardy, and I am joined by Captain Wallace. So I'm going to do the Northeast side of the update. There's no secret that we all took a beating in the beginning of the year, but we are downtrending in a positive way in all our violent crime areas. We're still taking a little bit of hit in street robberies in the Northeast, but we are planning and executing those plans to reduce those crime numbers in those street robberies. Other than that, we've been getting reports in the Lock Raven area in reference to squeegee kids, and we're working diligently with the state's attorney's office to see what we can do about, trying to make that a safer, interaction with the squeegee kids. Other than that, our crime is downtrending in the right direction, and any questions that you have, I'm here to answer for you.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Hardy and Captain Wallace. So we'll have our Q&A in a few minutes, and I'm sure folks will have a lot of questions for you. But thank you for being here. Thank you to all of our panelists, but for now, I will give it back to the Councilman for a few quick updates about the district and City Hall.
Awesome. Thank you, Maura, and thank you for the agencies for taking the time to show up today and be accountable to the folks of the 4th. So I know it has felt like a long winter, but spring is officially here, and that means lots of outdoor events, festivals, cleanups in our communities and around Baltimore. This past weekend, I had the opportunity to join Loyola's York Road Community Days, one of Loyola's York Road Community Days alongside students and community members. And there's another one coming up this Saturday morning. I'll make sure that Marie or Maura can drop the exact information in the chat if folks are interested in coming out to support. Also, if we can help support your event, or if you want us to help promote it, please let us know. My office has been working with the good neighbors of the Lock Raven Improvement Association on their upcoming job fair later this spring. And York Road Elementary has also been partnering with an organization I once led, the Baltimore Tree Trust, on a tree planting and environmental organization this spring. So there's a lot happening in the 4th, and lots of exciting times. And I think, I'm excited to see more faces. So I also wanted to touch on a few issues that have been of concern to the community. As you guys all know, after the unfortunate zoning board decision to allow the proposed York Road crematorium, it's now being challenged in court, and we're waiting to see what decision will come out of it. We're hoping that they'll listen to the legitimate concerns of the residents in the community about the health and the environment, and the impacts to the Richmond Springs, Winston Govans, and West Radnor Winston neighborhoods. I'll continue providing updates as we receive them in our biweekly newsletter. Also of note, the traffic study for the transit future of the York Road is going to be continuing, and it's actually nearing its end. I want to thank the hardworking folks of the Department of Transportation that have fielded countless calls and emails from my office as we work out the details on this matter. We're looking forward to the final results, as I'm sure many of you are as well. If you are interested in learning more about that study, the York Road study, please let my office know. We'll be happy to share additional updates in the future. I also have a few other important updates to share about our work in City Hall. First of all, City Hall is finally opening. It's reopening on April 4th. It'll be open to the public, and our council meetings, council hearings, liquor board meetings, zoning board meetings, planning commission meetings, and board investment meetings will be back in person. My office is still trying to figure out how we're going to split our time between the district office and city hall, but we'll be spending much more time in person starting next month. As always, if you would like to meet with me or talk through a neighborhood concern, please feel free to send us an email or give us a call, and I'm more than happy to do so. And we will continue to do our meetings out in the community, our community days, a few times a week. So we're always available. We are going to be holding hearings this week and the next week with the Baltimore Police Department and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. I hear and I sense the frustration, anger, and fear at the crime and violence in our city, and I see the numbers going up, and it makes me really, really frustrated and angry. I think we are all frustrated with the direction that we've seen things go. I'm committed to doing everything in my power to work with our city's public safety stakeholders while holding them accountable for the plans and promises that they make to my committee, the Public Safety Committee, and to the citizens of Baltimore. Just of note, maybe a couple of weeks ago now, I had the opportunity to testify on two really important bills in Annapolis last month. The first to crack down on ghost guns that have been turning up all over the place in Baltimore City. And secondly, to testify to close a loophole that resulted in the Baltimore Police Department being the only police department in Maryland that was not notified when people accused of serious crimes were released before trial. Lastly, I've got some really good news. My climate package, which is geared toward ushering Baltimore toward becoming a cleaner and healthier city, is moving along swimmingly. Last week, my bill to achieve net zero emissions of greenhouse gases for city operations by 2045 passed unanimously out of committee, making government, our homes, businesses, and methods of transportation cleaner, greener, and slowing Baltimore's impact towards climate change. This has a number of immediate impacts to the city, including flooding, hotter neighborhoods, more severe storms, and otherwise. So I want to thank everyone who has taken the time to write to all of my committee members and to all of my colleagues on the council concerning those bills. We get them all, and I've read many of them, so I appreciate you guys supporting the legislation. And I really do look forward to my colleagues' support. I have no reason to believe that we could expect otherwise. So those are my updates for now, and I'll turn it back over to Maura to help us through the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Councilman. I will also mention I just got a private message from our friends over at Loch Raven. I just wanted to plug another community update about the proposed BGE substation project, which is scheduled to begin next year. So the Loch Raven Improvement Association has been in conversation with BGE along with our office and some other folks about this project. It's going to be quite a big project. So if you have any questions, if you'd like to learn more about it, if it will be near your community, please do send me an email. My contact information will be in a slide at the end, and I'll make sure to connect you to the right people, but just wanted to plug that as well. And against all odds, we're only 4 minutes past due for our Q&A section, so really appreciate everybody's patience with the technical difficulties. But I will start with reading off some of the questions that we received from our registration form, where people pre-submitted questions, as well as some that have been coming into the chat. If we don't get to your question by the end of the night, we'll be sure to follow up with you after. So first I will pose to Councilman Conway. What are your number 1 and number 2 priorities or challenges or opportunities for 2022 and 2023?
Great question. I'd say my first priority is focusing on reducing violent crime throughout the city. It's the elephant in every single room. We talk about a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, and I think it unfortunately has sort of flared up recently. So continuing to work with the various stakeholders is at the very top of my priority list. And I continue to meet with the Public Safety Committee, but then also continue to meet with the mayor's team and the commissioner to figure out what they need in order to succeed, and make sure that we hold the police department accountable, but then also make sure we're providing the resources so that they can actually do that. And then I'd say my second biggest priority is one that we talked at length about in the beginning of this meeting, and that's getting the bid pass, the Business Improvement District. I know for the last 2 years, we've been really struggling through the pandemic, but I think it's really hit our businesses harder than most realize. And I think we are really missing significant opportunities with federal funding coming down the pipe, with additional assistance for businesses as we sort of sort out what the pandemic has meant to us and how to get out of it. And as we open up, I think it's all that much more important that we get this right. And I think the Business Improvement District is a major key in that initiative. With the York corridor running literally through the center of the district, I think it's going to be incredibly consequential to all the neighborhoods. So that's my second biggest and most important focus.
Great, and we have another question that sort of leads into. This could be answered by both Councilman Conway and our representatives from BPD. But someone asked, what strategies are currently in place to stop the violence and to prevent crime in Baltimore City?
I can start taking a hack at it, and I'll leave some of the enforcement strategies to the true experts on the line. But from support side, as I've been talking with the folks in the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety Engagement, of course, Safe Streets has been a key endeavor. Violence interrupter programs essentially walk into neighborhoods and try to break up problems before they turn to violence. The second, and probably one of the most, if not talked about things to that plan, has been the group violence reduction strategy. And this is a method by which we focus on the groups of folks that are most likely to commit violent acts of crime, focusing on the people who are most likely to kill each other. And one, do a better job enforcing upon those folks, but then also do a better job of offering them alternatives to violent crime. That's going to be a big piece, and it's something that's being rolled out now. I'll be honest, not to the speed that I'd like to see, but I think it has shown to be effective here in Baltimore when I worked in the mayor's office, and so I know that it works. It's just a matter of doing so expeditiously. I'll also sort of speak to some of the other sort of softer approaches, such as ROCA, which is an alternative for folks, helping young folks find work opportunities, alternatives to resorting to the streets. ROCA is huge at doing that, helping our young people find alternative opportunities, our at-risk youth. And then I'd say targeted enforcement, and I won't go into detail there. I'll let the experts speak to target enforcement. If anybody from BPD wants to talk a little bit about specifically what BPD has been doing to address that, that'd be helpful. Major Shorter or
So this is Captain Wallace. Good evening, everyone. And I know here in the Northeast, we definitely have our officers very present, available, conducting proactive enforcement in our problematic areas. In the Lock Raven community, we have targeted enforcement up and down our main thoroughfares, our business checks, car stops, and just making sure that they're available in those areas to direct their enforcement and their concerns to whatever the community. I know our community services officers, I can turn it over to Sergeant Hardy on what they're doing to make sure that the community is safe, they're approachable, and they're able to voice their concerns as far as what's going on in the Northeast District.
Thank you, Captain. And I just saw that Major Shorter is having some technical difficulties. You guys are going to hear that way too much today. I'm happy to say this will hopefully be the last one that we have to rely totally on a virtual setting in order to meet. Captain Shorter, if you're able to, please do provide some additional insight. If not, we can move on, and you're welcome to add additional insight later. Okay, Maura, I think we move on.
Okay, sounds like a plan. And so switching pace a little bit, we have a question for DOT. I know that Ms. Terena Galloway is on the line for any of your DOT questions. But our first question was if signage for no parking of commercial vehicles is able to be placed specifically along the 5600 block of Chickapin Parkway. But Terena, if you might be able to share how folks can get signage like this in their communities, that'd be helpful.
Good evening, everyone. Glad I could join tonight. Terena Galloway with the Department of Transportation. As it's related to the commercial vehicle signs, it's likely that they can be placed. I just took note of that location, Mara. So if you are going to be the conduit, I can give you an update once I have someone go out and investigate. We certainly don't have a problem placing those signs in communities that are plagued with commercial vehicles, but I also would like to provide information on what is considered a commercial vehicle to the resident that asked that question, so I can deliver that information to you to share. That's okay? Because there is a clear definition of commercial vehicle. And sometimes vehicles that residents feel are commercial classified are not necessarily so. But I'll make sure to share that information, and certainly if there's an ongoing issue there, as soon as we get some more inventory of CIPs, which are the poles that hold the signs that say no parking, which we are absolutely out of citywide right at this moment, we'd be happy to put them up if there's that need.
Thank you, Terena. Yeah, I'll look out for that information from you, and I'll share with the person who's pre-submitted that question. But for anyone who's looking for signage from DOT, feel free to drop me an email and I'll loop in Ms. Galloway for that. Thank you. Our next question, this one is, again, hopefully Major Shorter's microphone is close to working soon, because we have another BPD question. Or actually, this might be for our Northeastern folks, but someone said that they see a lot of attention being placed on the York Road area with safety, but they're wondering what the plans are to improve safety at the Alameda Shopping Center.
I'll take a hack at this. I think so. A couple of things. We have been focused on the Alameda Shopping Center, and I think the way that we've approached it has been multifold. I'm not sure who asked the question, but I'm sure they are very aware that the shopping center has been a pain point for some time, and I appreciate the frustration there, because I think I've shared that as well. We've done a couple of things, and my office has been coordinating a number of Activate events. I don't know how much you know about the work that we've been doing around crime prevention through environmental design. One of the core pieces and tenets of CPTED, for short, crime prevention through environmental design, is to activate space. And so we've held now 2 Activate events at the Alameda Shopping Center, trying to get folks out, trying to get folks shopping, walking around, getting to know each other, believing that if you get more eyes on the street, you get more people using a space legitimately, you'll see less less crime. And I think that's something that we've tried to lean into, one at the Alameda Shopping Center, and we're exploring that in other parts of the community as well. We've also been meeting with the community, realizing the number of issues that we've had at the shopping center, to talk about enforcement in the area and other things that the police department can do in the area. But to that end, I'll leave it a little bit to both districts, knowing that it is along the line, and I think that also adds some additional complication to enforcement there. But I'm not sure if Major Shorter can figure out the mic situation and give a little bit.
Hello, can you hear me?
There we go. Yes, we can
All
hear
right.
you, Major Shorter.
Every time I'm on my laptop at home, so I don't know what the issue is, but it always goes through this, especially with WebEx. So the Alameda Shopping Center has been problematic since I started my career almost 29 years ago. We've tried multiple deployment strategies. One second. Multiple deployment strategies to work at the shopping center. We've done churches, we've done walks. I have an officer basically that is assigned to the shopping center from 7 in the morning until 11 at night. He walks foot, he does business checks. Periodically, he'll stop a car if he sees a violation. He's supposed to issue parking tickets. The last incident we had was an internal beef between two people who knew each other. While the officer walked into the business to do a business check, I guess the situation escalated and a shooting occurred. Once the shooting occurred, the information was quickly developed as who the suspect was, and we quickly learned that they were friends. Unfortunately, before we could bring that person to justice, he committed suicide. There's just sometimes some things happen with the police within 25 yards of what happened. I know there's still issues of narcotic violations. There's a new, the same security company that took over for 5220 York Road now has an officer assigned to that shopping center as well. We know that there's one with the assigned to the gas station as well as the supermarket. And it's about not having just people there, but the right people there to do the right thing at the right time. It's my intent and my purpose, and you'll see things will increase and get ramped up as far as if I have to assign an additional officer to the shopping center just to help out, because it becomes like pushing things around. So if we go to the front of the gas station, they move to the back. If we go to the back of the gas station, they move to the front. We've also discovered that they've moved to the rear of the shopping center. So the patrols increase. There were some issues with other agencies where people who were responsible for a lot of the violence and a lot of the crime up there were arrested. But unfortunately, they weren't held as long as we would have liked them to be held. And they're back. Also, some things have increased since those persons have been released. So it's our job to identify those persons again, develop cases through the help of the businesses as well as the community members who frequent the Alameda Shopping Center and our officers, as well as the cameras that's in the shopping center, to deal with these issues again. We're working hard at it. It doesn't go away. We're not going anywhere. And if people have any issues, I always put my email out there, and I'll put it in the chat again. If you see an officer who is not doing something right, whether you believe it's right or wrong, just shoot me an email and I'll address it as quickly as possible. If you have any additional information that we can follow up on in reference to drug dealing, in reference to any kind of criminality, we'll take it and we'll follow up on it. It's a community where people live. You have people who've owned their homes for 30, 40, 50 years, and then you have the apartment complex with people just starting on their journey. So it should be a place that we all should feel comfortable in. I would like to be able to go pump gas myself, right? But if I can't pump gas, then my aunt can't pump gas, my grandmother can't pump gas, and that's just not right. There are food deserts and all kind of different deserts throughout the city, and we don't want the Alameda corridor to be a desert of any kind for any resource. So like I said, if you have information in reference to the shopping center, we'll take it. If you have any concerns about what my officers are doing or aren't doing, or you just aren't satisfied with their customer service, just let me know. If you see an officer sitting in his car doing nothing, please let me know. Write down the vehicle numbers. There should be 6 numbers on the car. If you want to take photographs and send me those, send them to me and I'll address that. We get paid to do a job, and our job is not to sit in a police car and do nothing and watch criminal activity occur in front of us. We have challenges and multifacets across different agencies about what some officers have a perception that hinders their ability to perform their job. That's not the case. When they went to the academy, that's part of the academy training. You're going to have roadblocks, and you have to figure out a way to either go over it or around it to achieve whatever goals are at the end of that race. So some of the things that we're facing right now are just roadblocks or things that we have to go around, but we will go around them with your help, and I appreciate it. Just send me whatever information you have, and we'll work on that. I'm gonna put my information again in the chat for you guys once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Major Shorter. I will look for your information in the chat, everybody, and I'll ask this next question for Councilman Conway. Are there any particular bills or plans you're supporting in reference to gun violence?
Good question. There was actually recently a bill that we heard in the Public Safety Committee introduced by Councilman Stokes that entertained the idea of a gun court. And effectively what a gun court would do is create a docket just for guns so that you would have judges, prosecutors, and generally just the same staff working on gun cases all the time, so that you would be able to have a little bit easier of a time working through many of those cases. A lot of times these cases get attorneys who are not as experienced or get different responses from different judges who maybe don't have all the context from previous cases. And so a gun court is an interesting idea. That's something that's also, well, it's primarily being considered at the state level. It's not something that the city council can do, but it was a resolution that we did discuss at the city level for additional action, perhaps at the state level. So that's being considered now. It won't be complete by this session. It's something that can be considered for the next session in Annapolis, though. A couple things. So the city council doesn't have actual authority to write laws on behalf of the police department, but we do have oversight. And so making sure that we're focused on, proper enforcement and proper strategies is a big part of how we've worked with the police department on those matters. Another thing that I've leaned in pretty heavily on has been, as I alluded to earlier, crime prevention through environmental design, or CPTED, which seeks to address a number of environmental issues in a community that can essentially invite violence, or gun violence or other violence. We're talking about lighting, we're talking about trash, we're talking about vacant buildings, we're talking about trash, and all those other components. And we've been working with other city agencies, that being transportation, DPW, solid waste, rec and parks, and otherwise, to address those issues and to make it feel safer and eventually become safer. So, we've been leaning in pretty heavily on that topic, that issue, and we've been focusing really heavily on our top 10 police posts, believing that if we can make any headway there, it could be a really good boon for the city. And then also, I alluded to earlier some of the legislation that I had an opportunity to testify on behalf of in Annapolis, that being the Ghost Guns bill, which would ban ghost guns and just require basic serial number, making sure that you put a serial number on these guns so that you can track them if they are used. And I think that's going to be really, really helpful in making sure that the police department has all the tools in its repertoire in order to catch folks that are using these kinds of guns. So that's just a little bit on what we've been doing and how we've been focused on guns.
Thank you, Councilman. Here's a real quick one that everyone's been wondering. When will recycling go back to a weekly schedule?
That is a great question, and I don't have a straight answer for that. I can tell you, I'm sure you're frustrated. I'm frustrated as well with the biweekly schedule. Sometimes I forget, and I've got recycling piling up in my home. Um, there's there's a number of reasons why this is going on. It's kind of a perfect storm of sorts. We've had a number of hearings with the director of DPW, and essentially what's happening is as we rolled out the new blue cans, more and more people are recycling, which is great. But what that means is that trash routes are taking longer. And so they haven't recalibrated the trash routes, or excuse me, the recycling routes in order to make sure that they can pick up everyone's recycling yet. So they're going to have to do a study to figure out what the appropriate routes should be. And that's something that the city's still working on. I continue to stay on the director on that issue, and we just had a hearing about that just last week, and we'll continue to lean on him to get a solid answer on that. But I don't have one yet. I apologize.
Thank you. Another question we have for you. How can all communities in the 4th District be informed simultaneously regarding important actions or campaigns affecting the community at large? One example given was the crematorium.
Great question. I just want to note, David did drop off locations, speaking to the last question in the chat. So if you want to know where you can drop off recycling, if that 2-week in between time has been too difficult for you, please do check out the location in the chat. And as far as getting notified on recent actions, campaigns, otherwise, I'd urge you to sign up to our newsletter. We send that out bi-weekly, and there's a lot of great information in there. We make sure that folks stay up to date, not only with what I'm doing in City Hall or what are some of the major issues, but then especially issues like this, where folks are organizing and want to be a part of making the solution they want to see. So yeah.
Thank you. We had another question, but I think that Mr. Lee responded directly to this person. But if you have any questions about the Adopt a Lot program with Department of Housing, Mr. Lee is your guy. So direct those questions towards him via email. Mr. Lee, if you wouldn't mind popping your email in the chat, or if anyone would like to email me, I can forward them on over to you. Thank you very much. So we have another question that I think might be for you, Mr. Lee, but I'm not sure. It's about the SLATE program. Has the SLATE program started, and is there an application online?
Yeah, we launched SLATE on Monday. And so as it is with any new software program, there's going to be some bugs. So you're going to have to be patient with us. But if you go to the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development website and just follow the links towards how to buy a city-owned property, it will take you directly to what we call now buy-in to be more. You're probably familiar with vacants to value. That has now evolved and transitioned to buy-in to be more. And it will take you to our new SLATE program, where you'll be able to search for and identify city-owned properties that are available and apply at the same place that you do your search. I put my email in the chat for everyone. Lisa, if you're still on, I put .org, it's .gov. Years of working in nonprofit, I oftentimes forget that the end is .gov. But feel free to email me if you're applying for a property, or if you're doing Adopt a Lot or water access. Just email me and I can walk you through it, or we'll walk through it together. But I'm really excited about the new SLATE system.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. And so we're now at 7:29 p.m. And so thank you especially to all of our panelists, but I'll give it over to the councilman for our final words.
Thank you. Thanks, Maura, for hosting that. There's a ton of great questions. And for folks, if we didn't get to your question tonight, or we didn't fully answer your question, please feel free to reach back out. We'll be sure to follow up in the coming days. I want to thank our guests for joining us, and mostly all of you for joining us and hanging on through all the ups and downs of this meeting. Our next meeting, I hope, as long as COVID doesn't get in the way, will be in person. And so I want everyone to mark in your calendar for our next town hall. It's going to be on June 15th at the same time, 6 p.m. And we'll send out the details once we lock that in. And with that, I just want to wish everyone a great night, and I will see the rest of you soon.